Alright, so now in this video, what we're going to be going through are the different levels of sharing. So I'm going to be going through the different levels of sharing from the workspace, starting off there, then going down to the base, then going down into a base and showing you the different levels of sharing there, with different views, different fields, and everything. And I'll do a write-up as well below this of all these different levels of sharing so you can really get the best understanding of what you can and will not let people do or let them do. So to start off with this workspace. So this workspace is mine. It originated in this Airtable account, and this one is an entire workspace that was shared with me. Now within a workspace there are many different sharing options. So if I want to share someone, I can add their email right here, or I can invite them by link. And with both of these, you get to choose which type of access that gives them. So I'll go into these real quick right now. So if you send someone by email or invite them by link, you can add them as any one of these 5 different categories of shares. So these really, as they go down and down, they get less permissions inside of your Airtable workspace. So this first one is an owner. Now an owner is essentially, if I went and created a new workspace, I would be the owner of that workspace. I can do anything that I want with that workspace, and they can see every single, if they're shared on any of these 5 at the workspace level, they'll get access to every single one of the bases. So every single base inside of your workspace they'll get access to, and these are the 5 things that they can do. So if they're an owner, they get to fully configure and edit bases. They can share it with other people, they get to manage the workspace settings, and they can edit the billing. So they can see the billing info. I don't know exactly if they can see your card in there. I believe they might be able to see like the last 4 digits, but they can manage the workspace settings, manage who all it's shared with, and upgrade the workspace and everything in between. They can do everything with the workspace, edit all the data in every single base. They can do everything. So now a creator, they can fully configure and edit bases. So they'll still get access to every single base, but what they don't get is they don't get to manage the workspace settings and billing. So they don't get to see who's being charged on it. They don't get to see all of the stuff in the back end. And the way you get to see all of that is if you come up here and go to account, you would be able to come in here and see all of the API keys and everything in here. They wouldn't be able to come back in here and edit any of the settings of the account. So if I go back into share and go to these other things, so if you want to add someone as a creator, they will be able to fully configure and edit bases. So they'll be able to change all the field types, they'll be able to change the tables, they'll be able to add all the fields and everything, but they just won't get access to that back end, the workspace settings and billings. So now the next one lower is an editor. So now an editor, what they can do is they can edit records and they can edit views, but they can't add fields or customize fields. They can't edit formula fields. They can't edit any of the base configuration, but they can still edit records. They can still enter data. They can still do all of that. They just can't do the structural integrity. They can't edit the structural integrity of the base. So what I mean by that is, if somebody is an editor, if they came into bug tracker, they would still see that, but what they would not be able to do is they would not be able to come in here and they would not be able to customize the field types in here. They wouldn't be able to customize this field type, change this. They wouldn't be able to add an option. They wouldn't be able to, but what they could do is they could come in here and say, they could type in here. So they could add a record, and we could say words, I don't know what the bug tracker tracks, and then we could say hi, and they could do all of this. They can add attachments and add everything, but they wouldn't be able to come up here and edit this view, and they also wouldn't be able to add different tables, to my understanding. So that is the editor, if you wanted to have somebody as an editor. So now a commenter, they can comment on records and create personal views. So assuming you're on a paid plan, they'll be able to create personal views, but they can't edit any of the records or views. They can only comment on records. So they won't be able to edit the data. If you want to see their comments, what you'll have to do is, if you are in the bug tracker again and say you're in this record, what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to come say change X, and then they'll see that, and then you'll see this little 1 over here, and you'll be able to see all of the comments on that. So that's how that works. They'll be able to comment over here, but they won't be able to change the data. They won't be able to change anything in there. So that's another option for sharing, is that commenter level. Now the last version is there's a read-only version. So if you want someone to be able to see everything in the base, you don't want to allow them to edit the base or comment on the base, then this is the one for you. You choose read-only. And if you're at this level, if you're at the workspace level sharing this, they'll be able to see every single base in the workspace. They'll only be at the read-only level for your entire workspace. So they won't be able to edit a single base in there, just read it. So that is how you can add somebody as a workspace collaborator. Now we'll go into a base collaborator. Real quick, I'm going to go share just one single base from a different workspace in this base and show you what that will look like, so you can see what it looks like on the receiving end of being shared on one base. So up here, I just got that notification that I was shared on this workspace and this base. So not the workspace, but I was shared on this base. So this, for that last example, this is an example of where I was shared as an owner. So I can fully configure any base. I can go back and change the payment options and everything, because if you click the share, you can see that both of my 2 accounts on here, I'm the owner in both of them. But in this one, you can just see bases shared with me. So if you share someone at the base level now, so we were at the workspace, they can see all the bases. You can see I can see all of the bases in this workspace. Now we're at the base level. They can't even see the workspace name. All they can see are the bases shared with me. And so for this one, if we come over here and we click share, you can obviously see there's only 3 options here. If we come back over here, we can see there's all these different options for fully configuring the base. But if I come here and click share, you can see that I'm at a read-only level. And so that's actually the smallest one, is the read-only. And whereas there is 4 in this one, and there's 4 in this one, there is 5 in the workspace. So this has 1 less, and that's because there's no owner in this one. So the owner is at the workspace level, but for the base level, you still get these 4. And this is what it's like to be in read-only. So if I'm in read-only, what I can and cannot do is I can't come in here and edit anything. If I try typing in here, nothing happens, and I'll have to exit out of that. Like, just nothing happens in here. I can view all the data in every single table, but nothing happens. So that is an example of sharing someone at the base level. So I just bumped up my permissions to be an editor now. So in this account, I'll be an editor on this base. So now I can come in here and I can still not customize the base. So I can't customize this formula. I can't add a field to the right here. But what I can do is I can edit the data in this base. So I can change this to myself. I can change these attachments. I can add attachments here. I can change this to 3 instead of 2. But I still can't like add those fields in here. I can't add a field to the right. There's no option all the way at the end to add this extra field right here or anything like that. I still can filter in here. So I'll be able to customize this view. So if I change this to where the writer is Ben, then I'll be able to customize that view, and I'll be able to make personal views over here if I'm on the pro plan, of course. But I still can't edit the configuration of the database. There's no like add table here field. There's no add table button right here. So it's still limited because it's not at the creator. Now creator can do everything that an owner could do in a base, like if you own the workspace. So everything you want to fully configure, all of the tables, all of the, you want to add more tables, you want to delete tables, you can do that with the owner or the creator option. And you can also edit all of those field types. So if you want someone to just be able to edit data, you would have them on this editor right here. So those are the basic ways. Now you can also share, so I'll share another one from that workspace and show you what that looks like. So if I'm in here in this and I share this one also with Ben, so I'll share this with green ben.ra. So now you can see I'm shared on 2 bases. They're both in the same workspace in my other account, but they're only in this bases shared with me. Now if I was shared with other bases from other people, those would also show up in here and all get kind of jumbled. So it's not ideal to be shared with just one base, but as a workspace owner, it's very nice to just be able to share one base with someone and have that be it. So I encourage you to keep watching this video over again if you don't understand these workspace versus base permissions yet, but you have very similar abilities to share at the workspace as the base level. It's just what level of visibility do you want to give somebody? Do you want to give somebody access to every single base in your workspace, or do they only need to see certain processes, like maybe in a social media calendar base or a project tracker base? Where do they need to see the data, and just share them in those places if that's applicable to your business. So now I'll go into the content calendar because I'm an editor there, and I'm actually going to up my permissions there. So I up my permissions in the content calendar to creator. So now I should be able to fully configure this base. And if I come in here and I want to edit table permissions, edit field permissions, this is where I do it. So in here, I can come up here and edit table permissions by right-clicking on any table and clicking that, or I can right-click on any field and edit field permissions here. So we'll see if I can do this as a creator. So as a creator, I can edit this to these two things. So who can create records and who can delete records. So at the table level, I can set who can do both of these. So if I have somebody who I don't want to be able to add records or delete records, then I might choose so that example wasn't a good one. We're here now at user research, which is on a trial of a pro plan. So you have to be on a pro plan to do these table permissions, as well as I believe the field permissions, but this is unlocked now. So here you can edit who can create records and who can delete records. So within a base, you still can't edit who, like if you only want someone to be able to see 3 tables, you can't do that, but you can edit who can create and delete records by, again, right-clicking on the table up here, edit table permissions, and then change who can do it. So if you don't want anybody to be able to do it, change that to be nobody, and you can even edit it down to allow records to be created by forms, as well as allow records to be created by automations. So that would be accessing the API, and that would be through forms, but these are definitely something you might want to look into. If you don't want people to be able to edit, you want it strictly to be through a form or through the API with the automation. You can edit that here on any single table. So now there's also the field level permissions. So on any field that is not automatically calculated by Airtable, aka like this one's computer generated, it's a formula, it's going to be referencing other fields. If it's not computer generated, so for example a single select where you're manually selecting that is not going to be computer generated, you can edit the field permissions there, and you can do that same thing. So if I want who can edit the values in this field, I don't want anybody to be able to, but you can still also allow forms and automations to do that if you want to. That's another thing to look at, is if you want other people to be edit values in certain fields, you can change that at the field level as well. So just again, right click on the field and then click edit field permissions, and you'll be able to toggle that here. So that's the basics of the field level and the table level sharing permissions. Now there's one last level, and that's the view level. Now this is gonna really take your Airtable to the next level, because field level is where it's at for sharing this with other people who generally are not a user in your Airtable database, and also embedding these views on your website or anywhere you want. So a common one, I'll start off with the embed one. So a common one to embed is, say we have users. Ideally it's one with a picture on it, because this is where that really helps out. So if we add a gallery view in here by the logo, we can see all of these cards in here. So I'm going to exit out of these apps over here and exit out of these views. And so what this allows us to do is we can see all of these in card view. Now this is really helpful. Let's say you're like a property manager, you have all of your properties on here, your open ones. You can actually add filters that if you have say you had a filter that would take out properties that are not available anymore, this would have a live view of, okay, what are my records, what are my properties that are still available. And so to do this, what you would do is you would come up here and click Share View, create a shareable gallery view link, and then once you do that, you can come down here and embed this view on your site. So when you embed this view on your site, it will be read-only, and it will be read-only to everybody. So anybody who accesses your site will be able to see the embedded view of this on their site. And you can also use this link to share otherwise. So if you don't want it to be embedded in there, you could share this with the client or share this with anybody who wants access to those properties or whatever that looks like for you. And there's also these permissions right here that you can allow people to copy the data out of the view, show all the fields in expanded records. So for example, if you expand this record right here, you'll be able to see all the fields because I'm an editor in this. But say I want to come up here and customize the cards. If I toggle everything off in here, and then I click Share View, that's toggled off. So if I now click Preview this, when I expand these records, I'll only be able to see the name and the logo. Whereas if I had toggled that on, Show All Fields, and expand this, if I now come in here, click in here, I'll be able to see every single field that was in that database. So when you're sharing these views, make sure you be careful with what you're toggling on here. And then these last two permissions are restrict access with a password as well as restrict access to an email domain. Those are pretty simple. If you click this, you'll set your password, and if you click this, you'll set the last part of the email extension that you want to limit it to. So you could limit it to one company or whatever that looks like for you. So this is a common view that you would embed on your site. Now another common view over here is if you want to share a view to allow somebody to keep track of where their project's at. If you want to share a view with a client, you can create a little dashboard for them so they can see what's going on with their project, what are the tasks right now, what's been done, how many hours are we taking. All of that data you can share a view like this if this was your project. So maybe you would have a field or a table in here where it would maybe keep track of all the tasks. You'd filter it down to one company, and then you could share that view with that same shareable grid view link, and you can just click Preview here, and then you can just use this URL. So all they would be able to see in here is what you allow them. If you hide fields in here, so right now you can see all of these fields, but if we come back into this specific view over here, so pick the right view over here, and often I'll just create one for, say this is for client 1. If there's data in here that you don't want to show them, what you can do is you can come over here and you can hide some of these fields. So if these are proprietary info or whatnot, you don't want to be able to show them, you can hide those fields, and then in your shareable link, you just don't allow them to see all fields in expanded records. So now if I go see this one, what you'll see is you'll only see these 3 records, and if they try to expand these linked records, they also can't see inside of those. So whereas this one shows all of them, if you hide fields and then share that view, they'll only be able to see whichever fields you did not hide, which is great. And also, say you filtered those, if I add a filter on here where let's see, what's one with more than one, so we'll just copy these and paste it right there. So now if I filter where the people contains Skylar. So now if I come into this and I refresh this, it should only show those 2 records, and they can't unfilter that, and they can't really do anything else. The only time when they could unhide a record is if it's grouped by something. So if I come in here and I group by, let's say, the name, and I guess the name isn't a great option, so if I group by the people, and then say I also want to hide the people record, now if I come in here and refresh this view, I'll see that it's grouped by people, but because it's grouped by it, you can still see it, so they can come in here and unhide that. But it's no different than seeing the info up here. That's the only time that they could unhide a record, unhide a field that's hidden, is if it's grouped by that. So just be careful with that, what data you want them to see versus not see. And I think that these shareable grid view links are truly game changing for being able to share it. Obviously it's not as desirable as a front end place where they can log in like Stacker, and especially if they could log in and edit data if you wanted them to, or give them different permissions there. But this is a great way that you can share people certain data in certain views without giving them access to your whole database, giving them access to other clients' information, and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions about the specifics of sharing a view, you can either go to my YouTube channel. I have 2 videos on embedding a view in your website using this embed view on your site. You just open this, basically just open this up and copy the HTML there, and then you paste it in your site. But I have 2 videos on my website about that, as well as multiple other videos about using these shared grid view links and sharing views and everything like that. So if you have any questions, ping me in the Built on Air Slack community, or you can go to my YouTube and find a video, comment on another video if you want, if you have a suggestion for my YouTube. And if anything changes on here, I'll update this video, so you should be seeing the latest version of this shareable link with all of these different table permissions, field permissions, and everything like that. So a real quick rundown of everything we went through. So first we started out, we showed you the shareable permissions at the workspace level, and then we showed you the shareable permissions at just a base level. So you might see something like this if you're showed at the base level. Then within that, we went through editing the table permissions, then editing the field permissions, then creating these shareable grid view links and the shareable gallery view links. And you can make a shareable link for any view as well as a form. So if you had a form in here, you can also share a form, which doesn't give them access to any data unless you have a linked record. But I have a video on my YouTube channel on how to bypass the linked record and still allow them to pick data from your database without seeing all of the data in there with the linked record. So there's workarounds for everything. There's tons of different permissions to be keeping track of. And if you're confused, I encourage you to rewatch the video, go ping me in the Built on Air Slack community, or throw a comment on my YouTube channel. So without further ado, I'll see you in the next one, and have a great day.